Today, I'm talking to Dwayne. Dwayne was almost 400 pounds and his situation was so bad that his feet had swelled from a size 10 to a size 15. He couldn't feel his feet properly anymore, and when he walked, it was like walking on a wet sponge. We're going to get right into it and meet Dwayne. Just before we do, I'd like to ask, if you enjoy this video, please do me a massive favor and smash the like button, and also consider subscribing. Please also consider supporting me by becoming a channel member. You can do that by clicking the join button under this video. Let's meet Dwayne. Tell me, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I started keto in 2018. Actually, I started a long time ago, but didn't know it was keto. So I'll get back to that in a minute. But I'll tell how I found it this time. I went to my doctor October 18th of 2018, 370 pounds, and I actually think I had weighed closer to 400 a few months earlier. And I go to my doctor and I tell him, look, doc, I'm going to kill over dead any minute. I can't do anything. I can't get up out of my recliner and walk to the door and back without collapsing for an hour or two before I'll be able to get up and do anything else. And I said, the slightest exertion, and I just feel like it's going to be it at any minute. Heart races and just no power, just total exhaustion in just a matter of seconds. And he checked everything over and he said, well, your blood work don't look too bad. And checked a few other things. He said, yeah, I know you've had a heart attack a couple of years ago. And yeah, he says, and I know your ejection fraction is not good and everything, but I agree with you. You're in real bad shape. You need to lose some weight. He says, have you ever heard of keto? Well, I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it. And he said, well, if you want to keep living, you'll follow my advice. You'll look it up and you'll start living it. So I'm like, okay, I'll look this up, see what it is. So I stopped at my favorite breakfast haunt in Cushing, Oklahoma, named the Homestead. Over a thick stack of pancakes, a couple eggs, bacon. I'm sitting there looking up stuff on YouTube, and I find Dr. Eric Westman. Started listening to him. What he had to say made a lot of sense. And listened to him all that day, and then I found Dr. Barry, Ken Barry. I think I know some of his relatives because my family's from Tennessee, and I've lived all over that he lived in. Anyway, so after listening to both of them, I thought, I can do this. And I was my wife's 24/7 caregiver. She was in pretty bad shape. And I had just had to quit working back in August of that year, 2018, due to the bad back and bad heart. I did not realize that 2 years earlier when I had the heart attack, the doctor had said I was unfit and unable to return to work. But I did contract work, and I never saw the paperwork that said that. So there was nobody to verify if I was fit or not. So I did anyway. And what had taken me an hour to do before I had the heart attack was taking an hour and a half, 2.5 hours to do. And I'd have to do a little set, like that. And the only reason I managed to keep the contract jobs, I had all the store managers like me, and they knew they could trust me. I've been doing their floors for 14 years, 48 of them scattered all over Oklahoma. 2,000 to 2,500 miles of driving every week. And I went from taking 2 days to do half the stores, taking 3.5 to 4 days to do half those stores each week. And I was in Altus, Oklahoma, the night I wound up having to quit working. I was trying to load my equipment up, shoved my last big piece up, my big floor scrubber, and went up the ramp, and I just gave and went down, and it came chasing down after me and pinned me to the ground, pouring rain, 40 degrees. Cell phone had been in my shirt pocket, went flying behind me out of reach. And I finally went to sleep sometime in the night, woke up to the store manager screaming on 911, there's a dead man on our parking lot, we need help. Anyway, that was my last day of work. So I had two things to drive me. My own fear of knowing I was going to die. My wife's condition deteriorating rapidly, and she couldn't do anything for herself, and was losing other abilities little by little by little. And I said I was her 24/7 caregiver. And anyway, after listening to Dr. Barry and Dr. Ken, I mean, yeah, the next morning, I literally jumped into keto head first, following Dr. Westman's advice to follow a very strict keto. He recommended 20 total carbs, not counting, counting net carbs, everything. If it was a carb, it counted. Well, I took him a little further. I went down to 10 that first day. I cut out all the soft drinks, all the Little Debbie snacks, anything that you consider a treat was just cut out. I made a Facebook posting a couple of months later about what all I had cut out and what all I'd been doing. Because by that time, I'd already lost probably 70 pounds, maybe more. And in my talking about what all I was doing, I said, in the meantime, I figured I'd make a clean break. I cut out the other woman. And I said, and that was really hard. Because everywhere I went, there was Little Debbie smiling at me, saying, come on, boy, you know you want me one more time. Well, and I got jumped on Facebook big time. How dare I confess to cheating on my wife with some woman I called Little Debbie. Well, a lot of people in the northern and western part of this country don't understand Little Debbie is a snack cake. Comes out from around Nashville, Tennessee. So I had to go get pictures of Little Debbie and the snack cakes and post them. And anyway, that made it very funny. I love telling my stories. Anyway, so literally I did. I cut everything out, and I had no problem cutting everything out. Cold turkey 3 days later. I didn't have any sugar cravings, and sugar craving is something that's haunted me all my life. And so I just picked up from there and went. Well, now let me go back and tell how I first encountered keto. Well, when I was 18 and 19 years old, I started realizing anytime I drink a soda pop with sugar in it, I'd be high of energy and crawl on the walls for about 30 minutes, and then I'd crash. And I'd have to eat something or drink something else with sugar. And that got to be a vicious cycle. And it got to where when I would have those crashes, if I couldn't get to something to eat right away, I would literally black out and hit the floor. I crawled across a parking lot. It was almost a city block in length, trying to get back from one building to another building where there was a snack machine so I could get some peanut M&Ms to eat. And I managed to crawl up to the machine, put 50 cents in it, get a bag of them, swallow a handful of them, and blacked out. Woke up 3 hours later. And anyway, I went to the doctor then because that was getting to be a regular occurrence, having these severe sugar shakes, as my dad called them. And he was an old Army doctor. And I was telling him what was going on, and he says, well, son, I was about 300 pounds at that time. He said, well, son, some people, they have what's called low blood sugar. I'd never heard that term before. And he said, what's happening with you is anytime you consume sugar, your body overreacts and how much insulin it puts out. He says, so it just wipes out all the sugar in your blood, and all of a sudden you have no energy and you just crash. And he said, I've got a diet that we used to give to people in the Army when they really just could not lose weight and had problems like you did. And he said, I'll be right back. He left the room and he come back with a single sheet of paper. And it said, don't eat any of these things, eat anything over here you want. And it did have kind of a calorie restriction on it, but it was like no more than 2,000 calories a day. And so same thing I did this time around. I jumped into it. And in about a year's time, I had lost, I actually lost down to 172 pounds that time. Looked like skin and bones. You could count my ribs. You could see practically every joint in my body. My jawbone, everything was just stood out. And after about 3 months, I started feeling weak, sickly. Went back to my doctor, and he looked at me, and I told him what was going on. He said, son, some people are just not meant to be this small, and you're one of them. He said, I want you to work on gaining back 10 pounds. He said, when you get 10 pounds gained back, see how you feel after 2 or 3 weeks. If you feel good, stay there. If you don't, gain 10 more back. Do that same thing until you get to where you feel good. So I got to where I was between 2 and 210, and I felt great. And I mean, stay there until my ex-wife was really driving me nuts and started stress eating again. And was a bad stress eater. And I pretty much threw that out the window and then just kind of up and down for a number of years. And then after she left, I managed to get control and I got back down to around 200, 210 pounds and did real good. And about 4 years later, I run into somebody, we clicked, and we both swore never get married again. We both had bad second times around. But we got married and we were fine. We had a great 20-year life together. But her children never accepted. Her second husband had been bad to her and had been bad to him, and they automatically assumed I was just like her. And so one of them just set about trying her best to run me off. And just for 20 years, she tried to make it as miserable as possible. And after 4 or 5 years of it, I turned back to stress eating. And as I gained weight, I kept all my old clothes thinking, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to lose weight. I had 5 or 6 sizes of jeans and work shirts and other things. And also my feet started growing. I went from a size 10.5 triple E to 15. And I got to where all I could wear were those horrible Croc shoes. There's nothing else I could stand. And I was slowly beginning to lose the feeling in my feet. Felt like I was walking on wet socks. That was the first weird sensation I had. I had a bad back injury in '94, and the doctors told me the feeling was coming from that. But I think it was coming from the high insulin levels in my blood and stuff. But anyway, little by little, that was getting worse, and I was gaining more and more weight. And I tried off and on, but I never went back to the way the old doctor had told me to. I followed this diet and that diet, and none of them worked. I might lose a few pounds, but I'd quickly go back to eating the way I had been. And then after the heart attack, I really wanted to lose weight because I knew I was going to kill me sooner or later. And I tried and I tried. The stress levels just got worse and worse. But then after I had the heart attack and a little further down the road, as Ruthie's health condition started to deteriorate, and she had a form of dementia caused by Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I never would have dreamed I'd outlive Ruthie. She had a history of being just perfect health. Our 20 years of being married, she was never sick. So whenever she had the spotted fever, she never knew it. Your little red spots on the palms of your hands or on your feet or other places, and she never had any of those things. But the doctors theorized that it caused encephalitis in her brain, which slowly destroyed her brain. So it took everything from her over the course of probably 15 years. And I finally lost her 2 years ago. But like I said, the two motivations, knowing I was going to die and knowing Ruthie wanted me to be there till the end, and I had promised her that I would take her to the very end. Thankfully, I was able to do so. If it gone on a few more months, I wouldn't have been able to, but I was able to. And so that's how I got. And then keto changed little by little. I started cutting my carbs a little more and a little more. I got down to 5. Started calling it ketovore at that point. And I stayed doing ketovore for about 6 months. And the more I listened to Dr. Berry, because I think he had just really started getting into carnivore about that time. And as he started explaining how the body does not have a requirement for vegetables, and you can live without it. He started talking about the Eskimos or Inuit in Alaska, to be correct. And I was born in Alaska and was familiar with the Inuits and knew that many of them had never, until they started eating the Western diet, had never eaten vegetables except just in, you know, very rare occasions they might eat berries or stuff in the summertime. And I thought, well, I'm going to do it. Right at 2.5 years ago, I cut it all out and went to just meat, eggs, cheese, and some dairy, more dairy. Not much. I eat maybe a slice or two of cheese a day, and sometimes not that much. And then I eat twice a day, morning at about 5:30, and then I'll eat again before lunchtime, and then nothing after that. once in a great while, like one night this week, I went out with some friends and we went to McDonald's for coffee, and they ordered pies and stuff. I ordered a quarter pounder patty, a piece of cheese, and bacon. And they're all like, "Boy, you're weird." And I said, "I know it. I'm proud of it." Well, anyway, and the health benefits and changes have just been drastic. I was surprised, and I had gotten to the point. When we go back even further in time, I had a grandmother that lived with us most of my life. She came to Alaska to help mom with her two youngest, me and my older sister. I was a sickly kid, had pneumonia all the time, nearly died 2 or 3 times, and have some lasting health problems because of that. And kept the pneumonia stuff until my parents both quit smoking. They never correlated their smoking with my pneumonia. But when they quit, I got to where I didn't have pneumonia very often at all, maybe every other year or two. But I would get bronchitis and keep it in the wintertime. Anytime I lived in a humid climate like Tennessee has, West Tennessee has. Once I moved to Oklahoma after 2 years, the bronchitis went away because I'm in a dry climate. Probably the first time in my life my lungs have been in good shape. My wife and I had COVID in the 21, a little couple of months before she passed away. And she didn't die from complications. We were both over it a week. It was like a kind of a semi-bad cold, and we were gone. Neither of us were on a fever over 97.3, which was weird. But we survived it and did well. But, it may have helped speed up her end, but it was coming. She couldn't eat on her own anymore. Didn't want a feeding tube. So I was just doing the best I could with it. But so, that's part of the reason I really never dreamed I'd outlive her. I figured I'd die from a heart attack and the bad lungs. But Oklahoma weather-wise has been great on me health-wise. So, yeah. My grandmother, anyway, anytime the weather was changing, she said she could feel it. Every joint in her body would hurt. And I thought she was crazy. And me and my sister thought we used to make fun of her, laugh about it. Anytime it was out earshot. That's the first thing that changed. Within 3 weeks of going to keto, I woke up one day and it was raining and I didn't hurt. And I literally sometimes would hurt so bad what little hair I've got. I could just touch it. It seemed like I hurt more. Second thing I started noticing, my mustache was almost entirely gray, and what hair I have left was mostly gray. And it started changing. I've still got gray on the temples and a little bit on the corners of my mustache. Most of that's gone. And then another major change I noticed. 9, 10 years ago, I went to cut my toenails one night. Flipped the nail and I screamed so hard. The nail bed was literally growing out from under my toenails. And I had cut that nail bed with a pair of clippers. And I couldn't hardly walk for 2 or 3 weeks. It was so bad. And so I had to be really careful cutting my toenails. 3 months into keto, I noticed they were beginning to disappear. A year later, toenails are back to normal. The nail bed was gone from sticking out from under the toenails. And I don't have to worry about cutting the toenails anymore. They're easy. I've got one that has a problem. The nail's thick, but I crushed that toe years ago. That's why it has a problem today. I have so many skin tags. Had them on my eyelids, had them all around here, up under my arms, all across everywhere where when I bend over something, skin folds, there were skin tags. And I started noticing the ones along here started disappearing little by little. I've got a couple little moles that are still. And then I noticed the ones on my eyelid were disappearing. And over the course of about a year and a half, they all disappeared. And that really did it. I've lost track of all. I should have kept a diary. Starting keto or carnivore, keep a stinking diary. Every little thing you notice, track. I still have to take 2 heart pills a day, and I take one blood pressure pill, and I'm hoping within time that my blood pressure has gotten better, little by little, even more. But I was taking 3 blood pressure pills before I started keto. and my blood pressure came down to the point the doctor started taking me off of one at a time. But the one that I have left is water pill, and I want to throw it. I'll keep taking it a little bit longer, and then I'm going to try and see what happens if I quit taking it.
Mm.
I have to take a blood thinner and I have to take heart medicine because after Ruthie died, my yearly doctor, and he listening and running the EKG, he sent me in for a echocardiogram, another one. After the heart attack, my echocardiogram said that my ejection fraction was 56. The second one, it was down to 20. The doctor liked to have pill. Put me in the hospital, gave me a pacemaker. And then 6 months later, went in for a checkup. He sent me back across for an echocardiogram. My ejection fraction was back up to 46. And at that point, he says, "What was going on in your life back last year when we did that?" I said, "Well, I've been my wife's caregiver for 24/7 for several years. In her last 6 months, she didn't sleep. Maybe an hour here and an hour there, so I slept for an hour here and an hour there. I was exhausted." He said, "Well, I should have asked you that last year." He said, "That explained it." He said, and it just took a while for your heart to come back up to what its new normal is. And it still hadn't gone back to the 56. Better than 20. But that's why I can walk a lot more than I did, but I still can't, walk for 30 minutes or 15 minutes. 15 is probably my limit. I go in Walmart, wanted to hold on to a shopping cart. I'm fine. I can walk all day. I had been driving in stupid scooter cars for 5 years, because I could walk into Walmart, go after one thing, grab it, and go check back out and go. If I had to go to two things and they were in different parts of the store, I couldn't do it. I had to be in one of those carts. It tickled me to death the day I got out of one, and I'm going to try walking without it now. So I got a cart, started pushing it, and all over the store.
That's awesome. So you don't use one of those anymore?
No, no. I can hang on to something if I'm going to walk more than 15 minutes. Let's see, I was 5 months into keto, and my appendix ruptured. And I knew when I was in the hospital that everybody's going to say, "It's probably that that keto thing you're on. That's probably what caused it," and everything. So I asked the doctor specifically. He said, "Oh no, when your appendix goes like this, it's been in the process for years." He said, "But it finally gets bad enough that it just can't go no more." Stupid insurance company. I woke up on a Friday morning hurting down on that side, and I knew it couldn't be gallbladder because I lost that in '94 while I was back surgery. And I knew it had to be an appendix. I've been around too many people that had appendix side attacks. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor wanted to send me across the street to have some tests run, and the insurance company said, "This white count's not high enough. You don't have an infection." Woke up the next morning, it was even worse. Trying to get Ruthie up, get her and get her out, get her in the car, and then trying to drive there like a big butcher knife down there, just trying to drive and concentrate on vehicles and not running off the stuff. And the doctor, that was a Saturday morning, the doctor told me it got worse over the weekend. So I did. 4 hours later, they were pulling the appendix out. Sure enough, everybody I knew, "Well, yeah, it was like keto diet. I knew that was dangerous." I told him, I talked to the doctor about it. He said, "Didn't have anything to do with it." And it turned out the surgeon that did the operation, he was in keto himself. And he had lost about 50 pounds. And he was tickled to death that when I showed him pictures of what I had looked like before, and he saw what I looked like then. So that was just a tremendous boost to find out that it wasn't keto. And so that just doubled my willpower to do it. knowing that it wasn't doing any harm. But he said that several patients did recommend it to as well. My regular doctor, who recommended keto, check up after 2 months, sitting in the exam room. Dr. Hightower walked in the room. He looks at me, looks at the chart, looks back at me, turned around, walked out. And I heard him out in the hallway say, "Which room did you say Mr. Britton is in?" And I hear a nurse say, "That room you just in, that's him." She said, he says, "No, that's not." He says, "Yes, it is." He walks back in and looks at the chart again. He says, "Are you Dwayne?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Nobody ever listens to me. Nobody ever listens to me." He was just tickled to death. He said, "So why did you listen and nobody else does?" I said, "Motivation."
Hmm.
He said, "What?" I said, "Well, knowing I was going to die at the time." And he had not met my wife. She was going to different doctors and specialists and stuff. And I told him what was going on with her. I was a clock caregiver and everything. So I said, "Get motivation." He said, "Whatever it takes to motivate you, grab hold of it, don't let go." We both house every now and then.
I've got a couple of questions. Where are you finding all these keto-friendly doctors?
Well, I don't know. It just so happened this doctor, and after seeing me, he brought all his nurses in, all the nurses in the clinic, and two other doctors, and introduced me to them and had them show them my pictures and stuff. And one of the other doctors said, "Well, I've been reading about keto. I think it might be something to it. I'm going to dig into it deeper." And I told him about Dr. Westman, and that he was a doctor and he was open to sharing information with other doctors, and told them how to get in touch with them. And the next time I was in, three and a half months later, Dr. Hightower had taken a position with another clinic, so he was gone. But the next doctor I had was okay with keto too, and encouraged me to keep going. You know, the doctor I have now, she was wanting into it when she replaced the other doctor who also left a different practice. But after dealing with me for a year, she started encouraging.
That's awesome. You mentioned you lost your gallbladder in 94, is that right?
Yes. I've been having
And
problems for 10 years.
how has that been with carnivore? Have you done all right eating a high-fat diet?
The only thing I ever had problems with, I couldn't eat hot, spicy foods for the 6 years after. The doctor told me, "Oh, you'll need to cut back on fats and stuff," and I didn't. Never had a problem. But I could eat something that was real hot, spicy, eat a small bowl of hot chili, I'd be doubled over the floor. I thought I was going to die. It hurt so much. But no, never had a problem. It just, I guess I always ate butter. I never ate uh, vegetable oil or stuff. I did eat fried foods that were fried in it. You can't avoid that in restaurants. But anything I cooked at home was cooked in butter and lard. Never liked the taste of vegetables. Cooked in it. I've been pretty self-sufficient most of my life.
Hmm.
The ex-wife never cooked for me, and I didn't like what she cooked anyway, so I cooked for myself all that time. Even when Ruthie and I were married, most of the time I cooked my own breakfast because I was up way before she was. I'd sleep till she got up. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Sleep till she had to get up, which was usually 6:30, 7 o'clock. By then I'd already eaten. I drank a pot of coffee and had another pot going, waiting on her to get up. And she was raising two granddaughters, so she'd get up, cook them, make them breakfast. But you know, I always asked about processed foods like that. So learning about them as I got into keto, and I knew how vegetable oils made that. I did a year work part time in one of the factories I went to in vegetable oil, and another one made fake cheese. And if you've seen those processes, you won't want to eat. It's horrible. They stench. Oh God! I'd have that smell in my nose after 1 or 2 days. in one of those two plants. And the smell gets all over, and you can't hardly scrub it off. I'm not one to wear
Wow.
perfume, but or colognes. Try to cover the smells.
Wow. And so just to take a step back for a second, you said at the beginning you were up to about 400 pounds. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure I was 58 Gene,
Uh-huh.
and the doctor he suggested keto. I had got down to 56, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure on a 40 pound difference there from the
Hmm.
one to the other side.
And what is your weight now?
I weigh right at 200 now.
200. Wow.
I got down to 190, and I gained back about 10 pounds over the last year.
Wow.
I had let myself relax and do some things I didn't want to do, and but 2 weeks ago I cut all that out. So they brought a coffee drink out to me at McDonald's one day. One of the girls did. She said, "Well, they made an extra one of these. You want it?" She sat down and took off. What taste that? I've never tasted one before. I've never done it. Those things are addictive. So I got what I drink one every now and then, but it was enough to make me start drinking Diet Pepsis again. Enough to start making me hungry again. And so I did that for almost 8 months. And I finally said, "You got to stop this. If it starts snowballing, it's not going to stop." So 2 weeks ago, I just cut it all out. 2 or 3 days to not want a coffee drink or something else I shouldn't have. I drink a coffee drink. 20 this time I was shaking so hard I couldn't always stand up.
You mentioned you're eating twice a day, and that's like breakfast and lunch. Okay. And for you, is this like there's no going back now? Like this is the way it's going to be?
This will be the way as long as I'm putting food in my mouth and the government don't stop us from eating cows. This is what I'm going to do. I just can't believe that what governments are wanting to do now. Cows, dogs, greenhouse gases, destroying the environment.
Mhm. It's quite scary, right? Um, have you had any friends that have seen your results and gone, I'm going to try this?
Yes, yes, I have. I was a part of a Facebook group, and I still am, that encourages one large salad a day. And there's at least half dozen women on there, and one or two guys that, from my experience, they started out following the biggest, and I can't be the name of that group. But anyway, they started out following the big salads, and they did a little bit of weight loss and stuff on it, but not what they were hoping for. So as they saw what I was following, what I was doing more, I have a little keto website I call Carnivore Dwayne. I used to call it Ketovore Dwayne, and they followed me on it. And those few, they've lost quite a bit of weight, and they all attribute me as being their inspiration to really get started into it and to keep going. And the two guys are both going through a carnival like I do. So I'm tickled to death. And there's some local people that have started doing keto because of me, and they've done well. There's some that started 2 or 3 weeks, so I can't deny myself this day. I'm going to take my diabetic pills and stuff, and have to deprive myself. My mom did that. She was diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. Her doctor actually told her you need to cut down on this, that, the other, and all. She comes home and said, "I can't have what I want to eat. I don't eat." She died early. She died in her, well, I lived her now. She should have lived a lot longer than that. But she had that mindset. I want to enjoy life. You know, with my wife being gone, I've been severely. It's a struggle. Depression is. I have friends that, "Why aren't you out there looking for a wife? Why aren't you out there looking for a girlfriend?" I said, "I've been through three. I love the first one, and I love Ruthie. The middle one put me through the record so bad. I just don't want to take that chance again. I just lucked out on finding energy. And mental clarity that comes with eating keto and carnivore. It's so drastic from the way I used to be. You know, sugar highs and lows keep your mind on such a roller coaster. It's frightening. That was also one of the early things I did. I think it was so much clearer, even though I was taking care of Ruthie. And I was trying to find a way for us to live. She was drawing Social Security disability, but wasn't enough for two to live on. And I had applied for disability. And like I said, I didn't know the doctor had said I wasn't capable of working anymore. So I applied for disability, and we were living on her $800 a month. I sold our house out in the country and paid it off to, to pay for it. And the building I'm in now was a little shop building again. Quilt shop for a few years. And the last few years of that, we rented out. Well, when she got to where she couldn't do that anymore, we sold that all out and everything. One day, I said, well, you know, we own that building for but I'm going to sell the house, pay it off. I'm going to pay you debt. And I'm going to move us into the shop building. Put up a couple of divider walls to make a bedroom, and a kitchen and bathroom in the addition that's on the side of it. And then I left me to work here. As a hobby, I work on sewing machines. Specifically old sewing machines. I love it. Keeps me entertained. Keeps me with busy work to do, especially during COVID. I was the only person on sewing machines. I had people bring me sewing machines from all over the place. I did a lot of it totally free for church groups and people that were making masks to give away. I didn't have to put parts into it. And we had 400 bolts of material that never sold. It was just weird stuff. Well, they might have sold elsewhere, but not here in Oklahoma. So I gave that to all these little groups that were doing making face masks for free and everything. Cleaned all that out. And plus, I had about 100 old sewing machines that I picked up for my dumpsters and I'm going to sell for a couple of dollars or give it to me. And I gave most of those away. Sold a couple. Got approved disability in 4 months. And I was sure it was going to take 2 to 3 years the way things work here. You know, I don't know how it is with here in Australia, but same here, if at all. But I talked to the guy when he called me and told me I'd been approved. I said, I'm so quick. He said, your back surgery from 94. It said you shouldn't be ever working again. And your heart doctor, he said you were incapable of working. He said, how did you know? I could work 15 minutes and I'd set for 20. I worked 15 and I'd set for 20. And I said, they got to the point that I explained what happened. Everything's improved. But I hope you just, work on a few sewing machines here and there. Well, that'll help a lot of people.
What started your interest with sewing machines?
When I first got out on my own, I lived in a boarding house for a few years. And I worked a little fast food place part time. I walked in there on a Friday about 10:30 right after they opened the application, and the girl says, "Oh, he only gives them out in the afternoons between 2 and 4. Be back." I got almost to the door and I hear this gruff old voice, "When to get started?" And I said, "When do you need me?" He said, "Get your blank back here and get to work." So that afternoon, he took me out in the lobby and he said, "What do you want to drink?" I said, "Coffee." "How you take coffee?" I said, "Black." He comes out with 2 cups. That's the guy. He said, "We're going to get along good." He said, "Well, for one, you're full of initiative and you like coffee like I do. We're not going to have any problems. We never did. Love that old man." But a friend of mine did a janitorial business, washing windows. I'd help him a couple of mornings a week before going to work. One day I was in little sewing machine shop through his windows. And the man got to know me a little bit. One day he asked me, he said, how are you as working on mechanical stuff? I love working on mechanical things and the electrical stuff. I'd like to learn to work on sewing machines. I think that sounds pretty good. I said, I keep my mom's old machine alive now since I was about 10 years old. It's a beautiful thing. So I worked with him about 2 afternoons a week, a couple of years. The dumbest reply I ever gave one day he said, Dwayne, how about you come to work with me full time? I looked at him and said, I don't know. I've been sissy business all my life. I should have taken him up on that offer. But, over the years, I've kept the machines working and stuff for other people I got to know. And then after Ruthie and I got married, she was booking for people. Like a booking machine sitting right here to my left, fixing up in the cell. So, but anyway, she wanted to open a quilt shop. First customer through the door. You guys have anybody that works on sewing machines? And I sat there for a moment. I said, she's doing great. Mine's having some problems. And it was an older Singer machine. I said, okay, cool. She left it to her name. She said, how long? I said, oh, probably 2 days, unless it needs a part or something. So I went home, got some tools, gathered up, and went and set up a workspace. Worked the next morning, called her, like I say, it's a hobby now. When I have a tool shop, I was doing cleaning these auto parts stores 2 to 3 days a week. I was in the shop 2 days a week. The sewing machines that came in during that time like this. Since I got where I couldn't work, I would see 2 or 3. But
Mm.
during some turned out to be a blessing. Get it, help me take care of Ruthie's final expenses, and get to make a trip back to. I consider Tennessee home because that's where my family sister left. A lot of cousins. And so I saved up enough money to pay for the final expenses and everything, and enough to make a trip home to Tennessee to visit everybody. I really planned on moving back there. I would be, and when I went, took a load of stuff with me, came out to visit. They carried some of my stuff back. Most of my stuff is in Tennessee, and I'm still stuck in Oklahoma. But it's a good place. I live in a small town. The people here are wonderful. I got to know a lot of them. If I have to stay here the rest of my life, a lot of good people in this small town. About 3,000.
Mm. Just to take a step back a little bit to when you very first started with keto, you said that you went like almost like one day you were eating your regular diet, the next day you went down to basically 10 grams of carbs. Was that difficult?
Yep. No, I
No?
just put my mind to it that I was going to do it. I was either going to do it or I was going to die. Ruthie, wind up in somebody else's hands, stuck in a hospital or a nursing home somewhere all by herself.
Mm.
And the thought of either one. Her family has basically disowned me since she died because they wanted to take her and put her in a nursing home or in a hospital, and it was right there in the middle of COVID. Nobody could have went to visit her right yet, and she would have died. She might have lasted another week or two, but the doctors tried to explain to them that her system's already shut. Stick her in a hospital, they put an IV rehydrator. It's going to cause her a lot of pain because all this stuff is already shut down and shutting down. She's going to try to start working. And so because I wouldn't let they try to go behind my back to the judge and take it away from me. So we're at home with her whole family around. So we all got the afternoon away. Haven't been back since.
Mm.
People.
Yeah.
I wanted to go the way I promised.
Yeah.
breath for her last heart. The night before, she said her last words about 3 minutes before I told her, I love you. And it took her about 3 minutes to say it back. And after that, it's like she was gone. 30 minutes later, her eyes collapsed. Waiting for the body to finish.
Mm.
She was an optimist. She, up until she got to where she could barely talk, she was still going to figure out how to do all this stuff she forgot how to do again. This problem, the last thing she could still do, love to. And one evening, I noticed her for the book. She was turning the same page. And I said, "Honey, what's wrong?" She said, "The tears were just." And so that was very last. She used to make quilts, crochet work, just all kinds of sewing and garden stuff. And she, in her last, it took her 6 months, but after I was in 6 months, she decided she wanted to. And I really think it helped extend her life for a few more. Can't be sure, but she lost about 50 pounds. Her blood pressure came down, her heart rate come on what and, she had a lot of.
I'm very sorry to hear about Ruthie's story, and condolences. Yeah.
Everybody in this had the same thing.
Yeah.
We just had 20 good years. Lots of problems outside, but none inside.
Mm. Yeah. So Dwayne, just to finish on a couple of final points. You got started with keto and then went over to carnivore in a pretty kind of pretty kind of cold turkey style, right? You just went, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that to everyone?
I personally recommend doing what I did. Start with keto, keep the carb count under 20, and from day one go as low as you can tolerate it. And 10 was where I did good at. And because I was cooking for Ruthie, I had to make stuff that I probably wouldn't have eaten, but it was still, I kept my carb 10 or less. And then over the course of time, I cut out more and more, and then just said, all right, January 1st, I'm carnivore. And so 2.5 years now.
Mm,
This coming January will be 3.
nice.
No,
And oh wow.
sorry.
So if people want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch? Do you have a website or a YouTube or anything like that?
My book is keto, carnivore. I think there's a slash or a dash between them. Carnivore Dwayne on
Okay,
Facebook. If it's not, it'll be Carnivore Dwayne with nothing between them.
sure. I'll link to that in the description. I really appreciate you spending time with us today, and I'd like to be in touch again, and maybe we can talk again and do a bit of an update and see how things are going. And thank you again.
Well, thank you.
Guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.